Joining me today is Jim Rubens, who's running for the U.S. Senate in the state of New Hampshire. Jim, thanks so much for being here.
You are most welcome. A pleasure being here.
So, I always ask the guests that are running for offices a chance to sort of get a little bit to know who you are and how you got to where you are. And then really the most important question is what's driving your decision to run for, in this case, the U.S. Senate?
Yeah. Well, let me start with why I'm running and then a little bit of personal background. I'm running for four big reasons. Number one, American families are under very, very serious wage pressure. People are doubtful about their security and retirement. Cost of living has gone up. Healthcare, education, fuel, housing has gone up, and wages are stagnant. A lot of pressure on American families. Republicans, and I'm a Republican, we need to talk about what we're going to do about that. Number two, we have a foreign military security policy that has, I'm going to call it Hillary Clinton's security policy of endless failed nation-building wars that have failed to keep us safe, spread terrorism, now operating in 8 countries, and has created more chaos in the Middle East. We need an alternative by which Americans can be kept safe. Number three, we have serious craziness in the extent to which our federal government is spending money, printing dollars, borrowing money at an unsustainable, recklessly dangerous rate. We've got to deal with the spending in Washington. And number four, we have a Washington that Americans across the spectrum, both right and left included, is bought and paid for. We've got a Congress that is failing to do the work of the American people because they're owned and operated by the donor class. It's got to change so that we can solve our nation's problems in the interest of the American people. So, a little bit of background.
Those are the four drivers.
Big issues. There are more that I can talk about and that I do talk about, but these are the big driving issues that a U.S. Senator has got to deal with. And the two candidates that were running before I began, roughly 3 weeks ago, you had Governor Hassan and Senator Ayotte, are largely indistinguishable in their positions on these four very big issues. And it gives the voters no debate, no choice, and no means to solve these problems. So I'm running to solve problems, expand debate, give voters a choice by which we can send someone to Washington, as I say in my campaign, to make Washington work for Americans.
So how did you get to decide to run? I mean, obviously you're concerned about these issues, but tell us a little bit about your history and how you got to here in your life.
Well, I got up here to New Hampshire more than 40 years ago. I went to college at Dartmouth, and I discontinued my education and became an entrepreneur. I started a succession of at least, I don't even count them, but at least 10 small businesses. I started them, grew them up. Some failed, some succeeded, hit a bunch of singles, did well and retired about 20 years ago and ran for the state Senate. I ran against the Senate president at the time. I had never held office before, but I have always loved public policy. It's an avocation that I've just been loved since I was in my early 20s. So I ran for state Senate, got elected, and I kept my promises. I promised to get Australian ballot voting going in the state so that people could vote on town and school budgets at a time convenient to them in the privacy of a voting booth. It's now called SB2. I campaigned on charter schools. I got SB2 voting passed into law, which is no mean feat for a freshman, but I learned the ropes quickly, got SB2 voting passed into law. My first year in office, my second year in office, I got charter schools passed, and a bunch of other. I initiated debate on electricity competition. I wrote the state's victim restitution law. Love policy, pretty darn good at getting stuff done, working with people, getting it through the legislature, solving big problems, articulating it, building coalitions. Love doing that stuff. Now, I left office and ran for governor, narrowly lost a primary back. Then I went back to the private sector, but I remained very involved in public policy. I led the Granite State Coalition Against Expanded Gambling for 10 years. I kept crony capitalist monopoly casinos out of our state for 10 years running against amazing odds. Every year they said, Jim, you're going to lose this one again. They've got 100 times, they get 1,000 times more money. They fill the halls of Concord with their lobbyists. They fill the hearing rooms, and I defeated them every single year by using organizing, we're finding coalitions, using arguments, and prevailing on big issues. And so I've been a fighter against the establishment And I won't go through the whole litany of issues I've worked on, but I've been very involved politically here in New Hampshire for 20 years, fighting what is now called the establishment. And what I call the establishment is people who are perverting the purposes of the political process, which is to do the good, the best for the whole body of the public, to do good for Americans in the case of
New Hampshire first, America first.
Yeah, you're working as a legislature not on behalf of special interests who have corrupted and captured the process, the regulatory and lawmaking process, but to act in the interest of the whole people. And I have done that for 20 years, love doing it, and am good at it. And now I'm looking,
trying to do it in the Senate.
Yeah, and I ran, of course, for the U.S. Senate in 2014. I lost my primary, came in second, so I'm pretty familiar with the national issues. And the public, what's different here in 2016 is the public is, and you look at the primaries we just had here in New Hampshire, both on the Democratic and Republican side, we had landslides on both sides by what is called the anti-establishment candidate, Trump and Bernie Sanders.
I hate to cut you off,
Yeah.
but I have to.
Yeah.
When we return, we're going to continue our conversation, so please stay with us.